I believe that everyone is capable of achieving great things, that everyone is capable of reaching a ceiling of potential that's extraordinarily high. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming today. It is an unbelievable day that I've had here. It's gone so fast. I can't believe we're already towards the end. Xavier, I want to thank you for putting this together. It's been amazing. I'm going to have a little more to say about that later, but right now I'd like to introduce Geneva, and to do so I'd like to give her a little bit of a bio, a summary of her bio. She debuted as a soloist as an 11-year-old with the Pasadena Symphony. As a teenager, I watched her in numerous violin competitions for 2 or 3 years, so I think she won just about every single one. Her most recent competition was called the Naumburg competition. It is one of the oldest and most prestigious violin competitions in the world. She finished as a finalist, but she was the youngest by 6 years in the final. She has played live on some of the most listened to classical music radio stations in both Europe and the US. And on that note, she's just been named the Artist in Residence at Performance Today, which I understand is the most listened to classical music station in America. She's played at a number of recital halls, including Carnegie Hall, and she's played at the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, which is the most populated recital hall in the world. I think they get close to 1 million people through there each year. And now, joining the list is the Spruce Goose hangar here in California. So on that note, I would like to hand it over to Geneva.
Hi, everyone. Again, thank you so much for coming out today. It's been really, really incredible to be here. Thank you, Xavier, for putting on the event, and to all the such inspiring speakers who have been here today, and everyone who came to share your time here. I was born in New Zealand, but I moved to the States when I was 7, and I actually haven't had a chance to go back since, so today has actually been quite special for me to be a part of this Kiwi community, and to just feel everyone's generous spirit and excitement to be here as well. So we were going to talk a little bit later, but I wanted to start off by playing a little bit of music for you to kind of end the day. The piece I'll be playing is a short solo violin piece, and it was written by a Belgian composer and violinist called Eugène Ysaÿe. And this is one of 6 pieces in a set that he wrote for solo violin. And these pieces are kind of meant to be a combination of technical virtuosity and musical artistry, which was kind of Ysaÿe's view of what the violin was. And these pieces were modeled after 6 pieces by Johann Sebastian Bach, who wrote 6 solo violin sonatas and partitas, which are kind of the central staples of the violin repertoire today. So each of these sonatas that he wrote were dedicated to a different virtuosic violinist that he either really admired or was close friends with. And this is the final one, the 6th one, and it was dedicated to a Spanish violinist called Manuel Quiroga. And Quiroga was known for kind of this also brilliant virtuosity. And so you'll hear in this piece that it's really a lot of virtuosic elements, which I will attempt to play. And you can also hear a lot of kind of Spanish-infused elements. The piece is a little strange. It has a very long introduction, which is actually longer than the main part of the piece. And the main part is this habanera, which is a Spanish dance, which is kind of the predecessor to other dances like the tango. So you'll kind of hear some familiar rhythmic elements with that as it goes along. But anyway, it's a lot of fun to play, and hopefully a lot of fun to listen to, so I hope you enjoy.
Well, first of all, thank you, Geneva, for that wonderful performance. It's, as I've said, ever since Geneva started playing, I always have loved listening to her play, and today is a very, very it's in the most special of the most special categories, I have to say. So thank you for that. Just sitting here this morning and listening to Morris. I don't know how many of you were here to hear Morris's opening remarks, but it struck home to me just how small New Zealand is to be so well represented in such positive statistics in pretty much every arena, whether it's business or sport, whatever category it is, it's incredible. And that size, I mean, with the coincidences were amazing. I was speaking to Rod before, and Rod, I'd watched at Mount Smart Stadium. I'd seen him run in the Domain. We'd run into each other on a number of occasions at events in New Zealand. Dick Quacks, I had dinner with Dick at his place in Pakuranga. John Walker, I coached his son in Auckland, tennis. John was actually a very good tennis player himself. Know him well. Kiwis Can Fly, the book, is actually on my bookshelf. Ivan Agnew was the author of that book. He interviewed me. Morris Williamson, who delivered the speech, was actually my neighbor in Pakuranga. So it's just amazing how well represented we are. But I just wanted to say that to open things up. It really struck home to me today. And being here today, I actually feel like I'm in New Zealand. And Geneva sort of made reference to it. And it's just a great feeling. Xavier, thank you for that. Fantastic. So my theme today is family success. And there are three things. When it comes to things involving a high level of discipline, such as sport or music, that there are three things in my view. And I just want to emphasize too, this is not a how-to when it comes to parenting. It is just something that I wanted to convey to you as food for thought. It is such a complex subject, but I wanted to just give you my experience on that subject, and it is not in any way meant to be, you should do this, just the opposite. It's just food for thought. But in my experience, when it comes to sport and disciplines like music, there are three factors involved: the genetics, the environment, and the personal choices that each individual makes as to how to make best use of the genetics and how to make use of the environment that they're in. And today, specifically, I'm going to talk about the environment and its importance in a family context. But before I do, another thing that struck home to me today was just how important the environment is in everything. Like, for example, we went on a tour of this facility and the environment that has been designed to make it fun for people. And the reason why it's fun is so that people are going to be more productive. You've got cafeterias, you've got gyms, you've got, even I saw a Barker Parker, which is where pets are kept, I guess, and people can bring their pets here. So the whole reason for it is the environment is to get, the objective is to get people to be more productive, to have fun. I look at today, Xavier has put on this incredible experience for us today, and it's the environment once again which is giving rise. I'm going to walk out of here knowing a lot more than I did when I walked in, and it's that environment that has led to that. And that is life. I mean, we're all united here because we want it to be life enhancing, and that's the environment is going to give rise to it. So Xavier, thank you for that. Incredible. But what I'm going to talk about right now is the environment in a family context, and it's to do with children and parenting. And I'd like to begin by saying that I believe that everyone is capable of achieving great things, that everyone is capable of reaching a ceiling of potential that's extraordinarily high. And how then, in a family environment, do you create one that is conducive to that? And whether it's achievement and success on the sporting field, in the business world, in the academic arena, or in music, any other realm of life, my contention is that these ceilings are incredibly high. And also, I think it's in our nature that we want to achieve those ceilings. We're ambitious. And I say that because when you observe babies, for example, they can't walk yet, and they see something that's out of their reach, they struggle so hard to try and reach it. Or you take a slightly older child who can't yet walk but is struggling to walk, they're trying so hard to take their first steps, supported of course by the parents and supported by an environment that's made it safe for them to attempt those first steps. And then when they achieve it, the end result is a happiness. And for me, that is, in a wider sense, what life is all about. It's about goal achievement, and there are no guarantees, but it's the happiness that you feel when you set goals for yourself and achieve them. So it's my contention also that a baby, when you see a look on its face when it gets that object, or you see the look on the child when it completes its first steps, unaided, the huge grin, my contention that feeling of happiness is identical to what Sir Edmund Hillary felt when he climbed Mount Everest, just that the goals were a little different. So then, as a parent, and when it came to the environment and providing it for the children, I wanted to provide one that was going to best equip the children for a successful, mature adult life. And I think that because happiness is a result of achievement, that it's equipping them to be able to do that independently and on their own. So when it came to the particular environment that I wanted to convey to the children, I wanted to also let them know that when it came to goals and their achievement, that anything is actually possible. And on that note, and Geneva and I were talking about this little anecdote earlier, not only was Geneva a musician, a little violinist, she was also an aspiring tennis player, she was a ballerina, did a number of things, and it happened that this particular day, we were at a tennis tournament, and she asked me, she said, "Dad, we were watching the Wimbledon final in 2006 between Federer," and I forget who it was in 2006, but Geneva asked me, she said, "Dad, do you think one day I could beat Roger Federer?" And it kind of threw me a little bit, and I had to stop and think about that. And I said, now, what was racing through my head was, did I tell her that no matter if she became the best tennis player in the world as a woman, she wouldn't be able to beat Roger? Or did I lie and say yes, that one day I thought she would be able to beat Roger? So, and then it struck me, it hit me, and what she was really saying to me was, "Dad, do you think I can achieve the ultimate when it comes to goals?" So then the answer to me was very obvious. It was, yes, Geneva, one day I think you can beat Roger Federer, because I wanted to instill the idea that achieving goals are possible. And in an abstract sense, what she was really asking me was, do I think I can achieve my highest goal? She might as well have been asking me, do I think I can become an astronaut or a princess or the president of the United States for that matter? So I wanted to let her know that, yes, I thought you can do anything that you set your mind to. That was it. And I knew that it wasn't going to be long, but she could work out for herself that she wasn't going to beat Roger. So I wanted her to come to that conclusion. Yeah, the other thing too, when it came to equipping them for adult life, the kids, I looked at my own experience and I understood the importance of choosing my goals for me, that I made the choice to become a tennis player when I was 11. It wasn't my parents who were making that choice for me, and I wanted the same for my own children, is that I wanted to expose them to a number of different disciplines and things that they enjoyed in the hope that they would discover what they were passionate about. And that's been a recurring theme today, is that you've got to be passionate about whatever it is you choose to do. You've got to love doing it. So I would expose them to music. I always believe that music should be a very important part of a child's development. I believe that sport, likewise. I gave a speech last year here about sport being a microcosm for life. I sincerely believe that it is. And music, I think, is it's a universal language. It's enjoyed by everybody, particularly classical music. So there was tremendous exposure to that. And because of that, the way I went about things was I prepared an environment where, when it came to music, we had some sensorial materials in the house that were music related, one of which was called the Montessori bells, where you learn as a young child to identify the various notes. And all three children, Geneva's brother and sister also, they've all got perfect pitch. And I think that's where the environment plays a tremendous role. I think, there's obviously genetics involved, the are champions born or made question, but the environment is a tremendous part of that. And I think what I've been told by music teachers is statistically for three children in the same family to have perfect pitch is almost unheard of. But I'm pretty certain it's a direct result of identifying those notes when they were young children in that environment. So moving forward a little bit, I also was very, as I alluded to before, conscious of the fact that people have got to make their own choices. And Geneva, just by way of background, was the #1 tennis player in California in the 10 and under. She was very, very strong. She's a fierce competitor. And I didn't know whether it was going to be tennis or music or ballet. And I want to ask her this tonight because I haven't asked her this before. I wanted to know what it was that specifically motivated her to become a violinist, and whether or not there was any sense that there might be disappointment for me because the choice wasn't tennis. I can tell you unequivocally that there wasn't, because I'm such a strong believer in principle that people own their own lives, and I've seen too many terrible examples of parents imposing careers on their children that the children end up hating. I'm in the coaching field, and I get kids I've coached in the past calling me later on in their college years saying, oh, my mum and dad wanted me to be a doctor, or my mum and dad wanted me to be this, and then they find out at college that they don't enjoy doing it at all, because that's the last thing that I wanted for my own children. I wanted to expand on that with Geneva tonight. I think that that's all I really wanted to say tonight, was the importance of making sure that you put in place an environment where children can make their own choices, where there's a self-reliance and an independence involved, where they've got an opportunity to find out what their passions are. And then just as the parent assists the child in taking its first steps, once the children decide what it is they want to do, you give them every opportunity to pursue that passion without imposing anything on them. So that was my approach. And I want to end by saying, when it came to music, my intention, I had no aspirations for the children musically, none whatsoever, other than I wanted them to be capable of enjoying what, in my opinion, was the best music the world had to offer in the form of classical music, the Beethovens, the Mozarts, the Handels, the Isais, that then it would have been a success. So that was my goal. I certainly feel as though that was achieved. And further to that, not only is Geneva and Nathan and Rochelle appreciating that, they're actually playing that music so audiences around the world can enjoy music of that level. So I couldn't feel happier as a parent about how... I actually want to read something. I dug up an article that I wrote when Geneva was 3, and this was the quote from it. Bear in mind, this is 18 years ago, almost 20 years ago. Quote, "I was hopeful of being able to instill in the children a passion for a lifetime appreciation of the best music that the world has to offer, and that the genius of composers like Mozart, Handel, Bach, and Beethoven would offer them a glimpse of what the world could and should be like. I'm pleased to say that this particular goal of mine was achieved, and that it gives me an incredible amount of joy to see Geneva not only passionate about appreciating classical music, but also playing it at a level that has brought just as much joy to audiences in the most famous concert halls in the world." So that quote was almost 20 years ago. So here we are 20 years later. And on that note, I would like to hand things over to Geneva.
Well, to start, I'll give a shot at answering your question as to why I chose violin. Part of what music is for me is that I've always felt like I wanted to communicate with people, and words haven't necessarily been the most convenient way for me to do that. Music has always just been something that I felt the combination of feeling and experiencing it, and really just the concept, that I think music does convey what words can't. I was at a concert last week, and they were doing kind of a pre-talk, and in that, somebody quoted a letter by Felix Mendelssohn, another famous composer, and he wrote that if I believed that words could convey what music can, then I would have nothing more to do with music, which just kind of struck a chord with me, because I think there is something so powerful and unparalleled in any other form of art, really. And so for me, I guess that's just a connection that I felt since I was very little, and maybe it was just kind of that sense of, this is what I was meant to do. So, yeah, I guess for me, music, although it's been kind of a standalone as well, I've found many connections between that and other competitive activities that I participated in when I was younger, like dance and especially tennis, as you can imagine. I found a lot of shared values between these, and a lot of these values are things that I've been taught from my parents, that have been instilled in me from an early age, some of which my dad has already mentioned. I think that ambition and goal-oriented work are an absolute necessity in any kind of competitive field. And although playing the violin isn't necessarily competitive in the same sense as tennis or other sports, I think that there's this same drive to achieve excellence, obviously on a technically proficient level and also in terms of artistic integrity. You want to be true to your vision and make sure that you are confident in the message that you're conveying, and it's really what you want to be saying. And something that I think is fundamental to having this drive is a sense of confidence. And today, especially with people my age, I've found it can be quite rare to find people who are confident in themselves, and especially when, it was also mentioned earlier today, when there's a very fine line between how to kind of show this confidence or how to feel it within yourself. Everyone's scared of coming across as cocky, but there's also this kind of trend towards self-deprecation, which I think is also unhealthy. And I found that kind of having this strong sense of self and looking for ways to gain confidence and keep confidence is something that is really crucial and keeps you on track with this drive to be successful. a few months ago, I remember I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and who was another violinist, and we were kind of talking. I was maybe a little bit of a rough patch with my playing, and I was kind of jokingly telling her that, you know, God, I may sound terrible right now, but I really could be good. I'm sure of that. I could be good. And this belief in my potential has always been something that's kind of a source of confidence. The same confidence maybe that made me sure that, of course, I could beat Roger Federer when I was 8. And since I was young, having that belief instilled in me that my dreams were possible has always provided me with that drive and that ambition. And of course, as I've gotten older, my ideas of success have changed pretty dramatically, and I no longer think it's maybe so realistic to be able to maintain professional careers simultaneously in tennis and dancing and playing the violin and playing piano and all this, as I really thought I would do at one point. But while these goals have changed, I still think that these ideas of success being a combination of ambition and a strong work ethic have sustained. And while my confidence in my potential has always been a source of confidence and drive, the most solid confidence and sense of self-esteem that I've gotten has just been through hard work and the achievement of accomplishing a goal that you've set out to do. And I know it's not a groundbreaking concept, but really learning the worth of hard work has been probably one of the most, if not the most important lesson that I've learned in terms of career. And the idea that my dad was talking about this goal-based happiness is something that's really stuck with me, as I'm sure it will, I hope it will stick with many of you today. Aside from giving me a really great basis for a college essay, it's been something that has kind of influenced me on both the micro and the macro level. In terms of in my day-to-day practice sessions, I'll come up with very short-term goals, you know, a 30-second passage. My goal for today is to play every note in tune. And you accomplish that goal, and you have the satisfaction of that small success. And of course, you keep doing those, a number of those every day, and that's how you can kind of track your progress and keep motivated. And at the same time, you can think about this on the macro level, which is where I would, you know, I want to apply for this competition in a year. I want to go to this music festival in 3 months, and different auditions and things like that, where it just is a way to organize and structure whatever you're working towards. And with these ideas in mind, I guess I just kind of want to finish up by saying that everything that I think I've achieved so far that could be considered a success is due to a few factors. First of all, of course, I have to say the support of my parents and the way that they created an environment that made it possible for me to pursue many different things which I was passionate about at the time, and having the resources and opportunity to figure out what I loved, and the idea that me and my siblings could choose what really spoke to us and what we were passionate about without there being this pressure on you have to do this is something that I really felt, and I always felt that there was the opportunity, but also the freedom, to pursue music, which is obviously what I decided I really wanted to do. And since making that decision, which I probably really made when I was about 13, I would say, I've always tried to hold to the values that my parents had instilled in me. Most importantly, the idea that you can have the capacity to always dream big, and the commitment to work hard so that you can achieve those dreams. And I think that's most of what we've prepared for today. I don't know if we were going to do questions if there's any time, but I just want to say thank you again so much for being here. It's been a really, really spectacular day. Thank you.
Thanks so much. If there's any we're kind of right on the time button. So, but if there's any big questions, some of the material kind of we could go all day, Chris, right, in Geneva. But I'm just mindful of any questions.
I've got one from Geneva.
There's this, you just pass it to Roger.
So I noticed during the energetic part of your performance that your ponytail was, flying. Does it ever get caught up in your bow or strings?
It has happened on occasion. Not too infrequently. Here.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that incredible, just the way you played that music. We could all feel it in our souls. So that was beautiful. I guess my question is it seems like goals are very important, and I've heard different theories just from different books I've read. There's goal-oriented. There's also just we heard earlier about being disciplined and just being thoughtful around your actions and not worrying about the goal so much. And then there's this theory on just making sure you're having fun. So I guess I'm trying to understand, is there a synthesis to this that you've thought about as being a coach and someone who's performing at such a high level that you could share with us?
I think maybe it's a definition of what goals are. So, if you've got a young child who wants ice cream, and that's the goal, it's not a major goal, but the happiness that the child feels once he gets the ice cream in his hand. I think that once you set your mind towards achieving something, just like the crawling baby or the child taking its first steps or winning a tennis tournament or climbing Mount Everest, that it's my contention that is what does give you happiness. Now, you can extend that further in a family sense, for instance, where once we had the children, my particular goal was for them to be happy. It wasn't my happiness was wrapped up in their happiness. Why have a family otherwise? So I think that you have to give very careful consideration about which direction you want your life to take, family, career, whatever it is you love doing, and that the result of that is clearly a happiness when you achieve it, but there is no guarantee that you're going to achieve those goals. So the length of time that you project into the future, you can break those goals up into very, very, very small steps, and that's come up, as well today. And those steps will give you happiness, even though the end goal, I would have loved to have won Wimbledon. I didn't win Wimbledon. I was one match away. But I got a tremendous sense of achievement from getting to the final, knowing that I gave it everything, and that goal of winning it, even though it was the ultimate goal, wasn't achieved. However, it was the process of getting there, combined with being able to look backwards, knowing that I gave it my best shot. So that's to summarize it, that's the essence of it for me.
Thanks.
All right, we'll take... Chris, we will have a downtime, and what I'm going to do afterwards is going to have a quick photo, and then we'll have a little bit of downtime because we're going to get some B-roll for some footage, and people can ask questions. So don't feel like you're going to totally miss out. But I just mindful of I'll get my head chopped off.
Is it okay to ask? Yeah. So Chris, you mentioned that you wanted to expose the kids to great music and stuff. How much of that was because you were exposed growing up in New Zealand to that, or how much was it because you got out and saw the world and were exposed to it because you left New Zealand and experienced that?
Well, interesting question. And before I just want to say how much I enjoyed what you had to say, Neil. I thought it was so articulate and added so much value to my life. I wanted to preempt what I was saying. So no, all my conclusions, I left home when I was 15 and traveled by myself around the world from the time I was 15, and I was independent both financially and every other measurable way as a young teenager. So all of my conclusions were derived from observation of the world, not from some parent telling me what I should think. It was all derived from an orientation towards reality. So I would be in different countries, observing how it was in this particular country compared to this country. And I would analyze and evaluate environments. I would, as somebody brought up the importance, it was that you choose your friends. And absolutely, I was very specific about with whom I would practice with whom I'd spend time with, because life is short. And like today, we're all sharing this common value of wanting our lives to be furthered and enhanced. That's why we're all here. And from my perspective, absolutely, that has happened in spades. This has been an incredible day. So my conclusions were all derived on the perception of things, identification of certain things, how I evaluated them, and then I would respond accordingly. So it was all done as a result of what I would say is my international traveling experience, because I was a seasoned traveler by the time I was in my early 20s. And I will say, on another note, when it comes to the family, I deliberately did not want to have a family when I was involved in my tennis and the traveling that it involved, because I couldn't do justice to it. Once I decided my tennis career was over, then the family became my number one priority. So I lived in New Zealand for the first 7 years of Geneva's life, because I felt that New Zealand was the best place in the world for children to have their upbringing. Xavier's made the decision to go back to New Zealand for reasons that are very personal to him, but it was in my interest as an individual to act in the family's best interest. And I will say that, did I consider that a career sacrifice? Because at the time I was coaching Ivan Lendl, McEnroe asked me to coach him, and I basically had the world at my feet, tennis coaching wise, but family by far took priority. And I would answer that by saying it wasn't a sacrifice. I did what was most important to me, and my career was very secondary to that. And I established a very, very worthwhile and productive career in New Zealand, with the family being the number one consideration. But all of my decisions as a parent were derived from observation of reality, including my own upbringing as a child.
Here's the comment.
Very quick. I just wanted to say a huge thank you, Geneva. I think you're phenomenal, absolutely extraordinary. But I also wanted to ask you, clearly you're from an extremely talented family, and I'd love to know about your mum and your siblings, and if you've felt competitive. I mean, I don't know anything about your siblings or your mum, but I'm just curious to know, have you ever felt competitive within your own family setting?
I wouldn't say that, actually. My siblings are both musicians as well. My sister is a cellist and my brother is a pianist, which actually led to more collaboration than competition. There was maybe some competition in terms of, older brother teasing, I can do this better, no, I can do this better, but very lighthearted. And I think for me it was more exciting that we kind of had these things that we shared together, and it was more an inspiration in that way and more supportive. And my mom too was always incredibly supportive. She was a model, and then later she homeschooled all three of us all the way until college. So also incredibly committed, of course. And if you'd like to add.
I want to add to that, because it's a fascinating question, and one that I actually considered when the eldest, Nathan, was a violinist. He's now a pianist, but he was a violinist. And then Geneva's older sister, Rochelle, was choosing an instrument. And I did not want there to be competition within the family. So I presented to Rochelle, this was, maybe manipulative, and I wanted to bring them up as self-reliant, independent thinking individuals. However, I think you'll enjoy this. It was couched as, Rochelle, would you like to play a little tiny violin or a big cello? And of course, the choice was cello. But I was giving her the choice, but there was a certain slant that probably leaned her in that direction. So.
All right, let's get around the press.